episode number 2 of the Athlete Branding Podcast. Today I'm joined by Pat Curran over in LA, co-founder of Curran Media with his brother Tim, working with athletes in college sports in the United States, across MMA, NBA, NFL, women's NBA. So one of the guys that really helped me get started with this, we've been working with a couple of fighters over in the UK together. So Pat, thank you for your time.
Of course, thank you.
So first off, let's just talk about your background and how you got into marketing. I know that you did it at college and you were a college athlete. So do you want to talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was an American football player in college, and I was just okay. I ended up going to 2 different schools, and after that, I coached the sport for a couple of years, and then so I should back up and say at those schools I was a marketing major and then also a management major. I don't know if do you guys have majors, minors? Is it the same type of deal over there at uni?
Yeah, so the way we do it, we have like an undergraduate course. So from when you're 18 to 21, you do like undergraduate. So I did football business and marketing, and then from there you can go on to do like a master's degree, which is like usually just a 1-year course. I don't know if that's the same.
Okay.
Is what you're referring to?
Yeah. So I did undergrad. So I got a bachelor's degree. I don't know exactly what you guys call it, but it's called a bachelor's.
Yeah.
Bachelor's degree in sports marketing, and then went on and got my master's in sport. Actually, I got my bachelor's in sport management, my master's in sports marketing. And truthfully, I got that second degree in 2010. I didn't know what I was really going to do with it. I really didn't care. I went to school to play football. I got my master's to coach football. That's all I cared about. I wasn't looking to do something else with it. Now, fast forward a handful of years, and I know you know the story, but about 5 years ago, we really started working with big media companies on their marketing and video and different sort of campaigns there. So we worked with a big company here, USA Today, which owns, not only is USA Today very big, but it owns like 90 different smaller websites that have team-specific deals. We did some stuff with the UFC, did some stuff with CBS Sports, which is another big network out here, and a bunch of other big places. And in doing so, athletes would work with us on the campaign, but either the media company would bring them in or the brand that was paying for it would bring them in. And we saw so often athletes just didn't do a good job of either the singular post on that campaign or getting re-upped for the campaign or going out and pitching ideas. And so a couple of years ago, we really transitioned to working with athletes specifically because we saw an opportunity to help them, educate them, and selfishly, we just always loved being around sports, and this was an opportunity for us to work specifically with athletes.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something I noticed even from when I was first at university, so probably about 3 years now. And we had someone come in who runs a sports marketing agency, predominantly helping brands who want to market their product through sports. And I thought the real issue athletes have is athletes, particularly MMA fighters, which for me, English football and MMA were the sports I was watching. Footballers, there's such a naturally big audience in that sport, so it's not so much of an issue for them. But MMA fighters particularly, because there's very little money in it, especially early on, always want partners. They always want more revenue streams, but they don't know how to do it. And this is the biggest thing that I've noticed, and that you and I have touched upon when we've spoken with athletes and whoever. All they're really doing is they're just kind of posting about their sport. And the issue is it's not really that engaging, because social media presents a new opportunity for the athlete to actually talk about whatever they want. And traditionally, when we were in a time of, say, Muhammad Ali, who was a great self-marketer, he only actually had those opportunities. There you go. He only had those opportunities really because of how big he was in the sport. He could only really send messages to his fans through speaking to actual press and the media.
Yeah.
And now that's not the case. So the example I used when I was speaking on my podcast last time, footballers over here particularly have an issue where they'll just post like a generic picture of them in training with a generic caption. Now, if we watch Sky Sports News, which is a media outlet over in the UK, they're showing us those things anyway when they're talking about players or talking about a specific team. So what the players doing is they're using their social media, but they're not actually adding any value for their fans. They're not telling us any stories. We're not learning anything about them. And this is where people like us can come in and help athletes actually do that, to actually gain the partners in the first place, as well as help those partners leverage those athletes in their campaigns. And not just that, but actually help them build long-term meaningful partnerships, not just like, hey, here's a CBD and it's like a couple posts. Because I don't think that's that effective. That's just looking for reach. It's not really looking for a long-term engagement. It's not really leveraging the athlete's actual brand and personality to align that with the product that you're selling. So
Yeah.
what do you think is the biggest difference then between working with MMA athletes and athletes in team sports?
Well, I think, well, when we talk pros, like you said, footballers over there, NBA players, NFL players, you make a bunch of money. If you're the last guy on the roster, you make a bunch of money. So it's different. You could be in the UFC, fighting on a UFC pay-per-view event, and making $10,000 to fight, $10,000 if you win. That's nothing. Now, pounds, I don't know what the translation is there, but it's nothing. They're not making any money from a professional standpoint. So they've got to make money, especially when you consider 10% goes to coaches, 10% goes to management, whatever the taxes you got to pay on it are. You might have to pay double tax if you're fighting in another country and then come back to your home country.
Yeah.
I mean, that can be a couple $1,000s. That goes pretty fast. So I think you've got to be more creative when you're in the MMA space. Same thing when we talk to, now we're starting to talk to college athletes about doing the same type of thing. You've got to be more creative because you're looking for new opportunities. You're not going to, in college, you won't make any dollars to play your sport here in the United States. And with MMA, you could make minimal dollars. Like we do some stuff with Megan Anderson, like behind the scenes. And, we help her with her video and some other campaign type deals. And she just lost a fight against Amanda Nunes that was just announced a couple hours ago. Now she's not going to get paid. So I don't know when the next time she gets a paycheck. She got paid her last fight was February 29th. Now what's next? I don't know. But when you're in a team sport, that contract says you're getting paid X number of dollars throughout the season, and you're going to make those dollars. It doesn't matter if you get injured, as long as you don't get cut. It doesn't matter if you get injured or don't play, you make those dollars. So they've got to be more creative.
I absolutely agree. And I think the thing that people don't really pick up on is that you and I and what we do, the main value we provide to athletes is, we can help you find partners and partnership brands. But it's not just that in MMA, because look at CM Punk, for example. He didn't have any amateur fights. He had no professional fights. Yet he was I don't think he was the co-main. I think he was the one before the co-main, or maybe opened the main card. Just because of who he was.
He opened the main card, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
I think both times he fought.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. So that's just an opportunity he had from the brand that he had. Okay, he came from the WWE, and that's a bit of an anomaly, but nevertheless, MMA is a sport where you can kind of talk your way into success or talk your way into bigger. It's not really a meritocracy.
It's the only sport. Yeah, I mean, only combat sports in general, I guess, but it's the only place where you can talk your way into doing better. You can't talk your way into a championship anywhere else.
That's exactly right. And this is what fighters need to realize is it's not just about getting those brand deals. It's also about having more leverage with your fans, which then gives you more leverage with the promotion that you're fighting for when you want to negotiate a contract. Because at the end of the day, they want to sell you to those fans. So that's what you need to do, is build those relationships and get people invested in you. Like over here, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, it doesn't, you don't have to be Conor McGregor. You don't have to be the most boisterous. You don't have to be talking. You don't have to be intense and calling and talking about families and religion. Those things don't have to happen, but you got to get people to give a damn about you. That's anytime we talk marketing, sports marketing, it's about getting people invested in you and your process and what you're doing. And, we've talked to those young UK fighters, and we talk to young athletes all the time. It's like, how are you different than all of these other, if you're an amateur UK fighter right now, how many thousands upon thousands are there? A lot, right? How many basketball players in college over by us, or football, or soccer, or tennis, or whatever? There's a gazillion of these people. So if you're posting the same stuff, There's no reason for me to give a damn more about you than anybody else, especially if you're not the elite of the elite. And that's why it's, show your story, take us through your process, give us a reason to care about you. And then you'll start to build this audience and start to grow from there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not about being the best in your sport. I mean, if you are better in your sport, it does give you an inherent advantage because, yeah, people want to watch your sport, and if you're the guy, then obviously people are going to follow you. But it's about maximizing the opportunities you have relative to wherever you are in your respective sport. And you don't even have to be a big personality. You don't have to be a Conor McGregor or a Colby Covington or whoever, or an Israel Adesanya. He's another one who just uses personality. It doesn't matter if you're not really comfortable in front of a camera. All you have to do is find your niche, what makes you different, and communicate it. And some interest that you have, or some messages that you push out to your audience, they're going to attract different people, and some of those segments are going to be of different sizes. But if you're an MMA fighter who loves gardening, there's probably not going to be a lot of people who are interested in that and UFC or MMA, but who else is talking about it in the MMA space? You're still going to have a portion of fans who want to follow you for that content, right? So it's just about finding your niche and finding what makes you different. And again, this is more important in MMA because it's not a team sport. Even Dana White said himself, you can say whatever you want. We're happy with freedom of speech. Say whatever you like. So you can use it to your advantage. It's not the same when you're in a sports team, whether that's in the UK playing football or basketball or NFL, whatever, because anything you say reflects on the team that you're playing for and your teammates, and there's a bit of red tape there. So UFC fighters and even amateur MMA fighters in the UK or Europe or wherever need to start building now because it's going to give them that leverage sooner.
No doubt. So, and it's, if it is the only sport in the world where that actually matters, where you can have an effect on your career and not have to get punched in the face or kicked or whatever. You can do that. You can grow from this, from talking to people, from using your phone to talk on social media, from vlogging, from growing. Like, think about Sean O'Malley, obviously a really good fighter and super talented, but there's no way Sean O'Malley would be as big as he is if he wasn't super entertaining, that outside of the cage as well as inside the cage. But the reason he's so big, he obviously had a little Snoop Dogg help, at the Dana White Contender Series, and then he's backstage smoking a blunt with Snoop Dogg, and then he just continues to build on the momentum and grow, and now people love him. And that's because of stuff he did outside the cage. Now he's obviously super talented. He'll rise faster though because of what he's done outside the cage.
Exactly, and everything he does to build his community and to build his brand, he even monetizes some of it, especially what he does on Twitch. He said he makes roughly $50,000 a year on Twitch, and that was a couple of years back, so he's probably earning much more now. So he can have that fallback as a fighter and just use that to live off of, and then anything he makes from fighting he can invest, or it just gives him more security, because a lot of fighters probably actually fall behind in their career because they don't have the actual resources to invest in proper training or proper recovery. Like Jessica Rose Clark, who is one of the best women in her division, said that she had like $13 in her bank account after she fought a couple of weeks back. So you need to start
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. You must have missed that. She said she had something like $13. It wasn't much, put it that way. So, and she probably gets paid, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a fight. But
I'll look it up as we talk here.
So people get mistook for what UFC fighters and MMA fighters really are, because as you said, it depends how often you fight, and you can't always fight because of injury, and even anything you do earn, you're going to lose roughly 50% of that to taxes and management, etc.
Yeah.
So you have
oh my god, she makes $20,000 to show 20 to win. She's a super talented fighter, but she's super marketable. She's funny as shit. She's fun. We've done some work down at her old gym. We were there doing some stuff, not having nothing to do with her, but she was around, and she was kind of with one of the athletes that we were doing some stuff with. And she was so nice and so sweet. And it amazes me that, to me, that makes me so sad to see an athlete who's a pretty well-known athlete in the sport, and a good athlete who's, again, hurt and just had surgery, to say that she has 17 bucks in the bank. I look at her, this is from 2015. It says career earnings of $137,000. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights. That's nothing.
And
She could. Go ahead.
yeah, and
I,
she
I
can't
was.
she can't fight forever, and that's in what, the last 6 years or so. And let's say roughly about 50% of that has gone on expenses, and then even just living expenses on top of that. It's a very difficult game for fighters, and it's one of the things that put me off of ever potentially going pro. Is I thought that would probably take the fun out of it for me, as well as having other interests as well as fighting. So
Yeah.
that is such a huge takeaway. And the issue, I think, with fighters that they don't quite understand is they give the UFC leverage because they want to fight in the UFC and not anywhere else. Things like testing free agency gives you leverage. If you build an engaged community, it gives you leverage. And that's why Conor McGregor can do what he wants. That's why Conor McGregor has his whiskey printed on the mat whenever he fights. That's why he gets paid substantially more than anyone else. That's why he got to fight Floyd Mayweather. So if you actually start communicating these things, and just being funny like McGregor was at press conferences, he didn't even do it so much through social media. He was funny at press conferences, and everyone shared that on social media, and he broke into the mainstream. So you have to just find these types of things and build this persona that you want to build, and people will catch on to it. And you don't have, like I say, there's no magic formula to be as big as Conor McGregor. And people try and do what he did, and it doesn't work because it's not them. It's not authentic, which is it's the big thing that you and I always talk about.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have to be Conor McGregor, and you're not gonna be Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is such an outlier to be. There'll be people that'll pass his money at some point, but he's such an outlier in what he did for the sport. He's so far beyond any other athlete in the UFC as far as marketing and how he was able to do it, and being from Ireland, that all kind of tied into this whole crazy rise on the scene. And the Floyd Mayweather thing was timed up perfectly, and everything just came together so well for him in his career at that point. But that's not going to be 99.9% of people. 99.9% of people can still create opportunities, though. The Jessica Rose Clark, she could be making tons of money outside of her sport.
Yeah, I agree.
She could. She's super marketable. There's so many athletes that could be setting themselves up for success, even while in the UFC. You look at a card in UFC this past weekend. You can look at guys there's vets that will never make, like Darren Elkins. Not to call names out, but Darren Elkins is probably not fighting for a title shot, and Darren Elkins is probably not making $500,000 to fight either. So this dude, but a guy like that can start. He's interesting. He's got a different vibe. He can start creating these opportunities. Why can't you start? And I say this on, like, anytime I talk publicly, I talk about setting yourself up for success long term. Why can't some of these fighters start to create different opportunities, whether it's like their thing is jiu-jitsu? Why can't they start doing some jiu-jitsu stuff online, or specific techniques, or wrestling, or start a podcast like this? Like you've heard me say to a gazillion people, the opportunities, when you get to the UFC, you should be able to create opportunities outside of it. Before you get there, you should be thinking about building, getting people to give a damn about you, and obviously winning and doing some good things there too. That obviously helps get you to the elite levels, to the UFCs, the ones, the Bellators, where you can start making actual money from fighting.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the best at that, I think TJ Dillashaw and Paige Van Zandt are the two examples who spring to mind. I mean, Paige was saying she makes more off Instagram than she does from fighting. So again,
she should be everybody though, except for Conor. Conor could be maybe, yeah, except for Conor could be. That's probably because Izzy could make more money outside the cage. Probably. I don't know what he makes to fight, but he's super damn marketable. He can make more money outside. I mean, but that should be all of the fighters. Now, when you talk fighting, and you probably know more about old school fighting and that sort of deal. So I know you're young, but when you look at old school fighting, it was the business, I should say, of old school fighting. It was all the same. It's like, let's get I'll bring this up too. Let's get a patch on my shirt or on my shorts on my walkout. And the value to the brands, I've talked to brands. There wasn't, some people said it was okay. Some people didn't like it at all, but felt they needed to be a part of these guys because they wanted to be able to use their face and that sort of thing. I talked to an agency, I should say. I talked to an agency within the last week who's a massive agency. And athletes, I'll tell you after we're done, some of the athletes from this agency. Everyone does. Anyone who's followed the sport knows some athletes from this agency. And the dude is trying to sell me with one of the brands we work with on putting a patch on shorts for a upcoming fight. And I was like, why? Why would they want to do that? This is old school. And they have some athletes. There's one in particular that they were trying to sell me on. It is super damn marketable, but the athlete does such a horrible job on social media. He still markets like it's 2015. If you look at his thing, it's a guy. Everything is just fight, 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 fight. It's a picture of him, and then the caption is some BS caption. There's no depth to it. Nobody really cares. There's nothing comes out of it. You don't look at that and say, man, I want to root for that guy. Maybe if you watch him, and I've watched him, think, oh, this guy's different, and he's pretty funny, and he's interesting, and I could get behind this guy. And that's why I had reached out to him recently about doing some stuff for his social specifically. But there's no buy-in if you don't know who that guy is already. And that's what social media, that's what you can create through social media, is create this buy-in, this audience, and be able to build now so you can get these big time things in the future.
Exactly.
2 cents on all that.
And so Jessica Rose Clark is an example. I mean, I get so much of her personality just by looking at her social media. And one thing she does, she posts memes on her Instagram story, like just post anything that she finds funny, or like funny tweets, or like funny memes. And I'm just scrolling through it, like laughing hysterically. And that's something that it's much more easy for her to do that as an MMA fighter than if she's in a team sport. And it's something that more fighters should just do. Like, more than anything, it just says to me that she's just genuine. Like, she's just scrolling through her phone, posting funny things to her social media that she finds funny. And if other people find it funny, they're going to relate to her and follow her off of the back of it. And there are some fighters, particularly, who just upload a picture of them in training or after training or a fight. And sometimes it doesn't even have a caption or like any hashtags, nothing. No engagement in the comments, not even liking comments. And I just think I feel bad for them because they don't know, they obviously, they know that there's some value in social media, and they know that they have to be on social media. They just don't know how to actually use it to really maximize it. And Paige is one of those who knows exactly how to do it. TJ Dillashaw is one of those who knows exactly how to do it. And on the note of building yourself up for long-term success, I absolutely love what he does, because firstly, he was the guy that got me into the sport. So he's like my absolute hero. So I follow everything he does. But there's just so much depth to it. Like he posts blogs and like blog previews. I did a story about this for you guys on his Facebook page. And you have to click on his website to actually read the entire blog, and it's on brand. Like, he's someone who always talks about the science and the nutrition behind what he's doing. So when he gives me content about here's how to do this exercise, or here's tips for losing weight or whatever, it gives value to me for free. And because of the businesses that he owns and the products that he has, he can just link in like adverts and links to his businesses at the same time. And it's just such a seamless, frictionless marketing strategy for him, firstly, to build some depth and trust with me, but to just send me on to more of his services. And to be honest, I probably would have bought them if I was in America. The only reason I don't is because it's so expensive to get them shipped over. And it's and not only that, his seasoning business, that's organic seasonings that has like less salt and like no added stuff. There was a genuine gap in the market for that, and he spotted it. He went for it. Like, it's a genuinely good product. And if I were him, I'd just go all in on that and just scale it and scale it and scale it. And that's what he's been doing, because he's been out for 2 years with his shoulders and his suspension. So
yeah, he's coming back soon. But here's what I love about this dude is at 1.3 million followers. You can't really see that, whatever. But I can go into this dude's video, and who's all over it making comments is TJ Dillashaw. Yeah, that's himself in there spending time, and goes through. It might be 10, 15 minutes. You've heard me say this before, but going in and spending just a few minutes to coming back to people. Like, think of when, maybe not today, but let's say 17-year-old George Parr gets a response from TJ Dillashaw. You sure should have are screenshotting that and you're putting that on your story. It might be on your regular Instagram, and you're texting that to all your buddies, right?
Literally 3 weeks ago, I commented on his post saying, "I can't wait for you to come back, and you're gonna go and beat Peter Yan." He likes it, responds to it, and as soon as I get the notification, I go to my girlfriend. I'm like, "Look, TJ Dillashaw just," and he's like, and I love him anyway because of how good he is as a fighter, and I think he's literally the most entertaining fighter in there. But it's just, again, it's just that sense of him being genuine and he actually cares. And there's one thing that I'd love to see him do, because this would just take it to a next level, is he always gets people in his comments saying, "It's my birthday, can you say happy birthday?" or like, "Can you reply?" And he does. What he should do, and this is what all athletes should do, because every athlete will get comments like this, is just be like, "Hey, happy birthday, DM me your address and your postcode, or a zip code as you call it, and I'll send you some like signed gloves or like something like that." And then the person who does that is going to share it. Media outlets will probably pick up on it, especially if it's like for a good cause or you donate it to charity.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things you could do with that just to get people talking and build that brand in the right way, and actually give back to people at the same time. Like you have an opportunity to do that, and you're going to want to capitalize on those opportunities, so you should do it for sure. And he's the best at it.
Yeah. I mean, think about that. How big of a deal that is to you, and he'll really have to mess up for you not to love him, right? And that's the type of things that I think a lot of athletes don't understand the power of their social media is just a comment back. What did that take him? 5 seconds to be like, "Hey, George, appreciate it." Whatever he said to you, that was a nothing thing for him. If he could sit there and spend 15 minutes to do that, that creates these bonds, these partnerships, this relationship with the audience that is hard to beat. 1, 2, now just from an Instagram algorithm perspective, as he comments and we're having these conversations, TJ, and then you, and you're back and forth, now you continue to see more of TJ stuff. The Instagram is pinging your relationship as like, "Hey, you really like TJ stuff," and he's going to get in front of your Instagram feed more often. So even just from a logistics standpoint, that makes sense to be able to do that. And that, I get it. People don't want to spend an hour on their Instagram commenting back to people, especially if you're big like TJ. I'm sure he's like steroids, IPO, bullshit. I'm sure he gets that stuff too.
Yeah,
but
sure, yeah.
To go seek out and for 5, 10, 15 minutes to speak to the people that are supportive, those are the people that are going to buy the spices, that are going to buy his programs, that are going to buy when he comes out with a t-shirt line or whatever. Like those are the types of things that are those are the types of people and the types of things that are going to get them to buy. Yeah,
and there's 2 things I want to pick up on that you mentioned, is that on the controversy stuff around him, I'll talk about that in a minute, but not only is it that interaction, but athletes need to realize like they have people who basically worship them, like people idolize these people, and it means so much coming from them. And if I comment on his socials and he replies back, the people are going to see TJ Dillashaw is a fighter who replies and engages. So everyone else then starts commenting because they want TJ to talk to them. Dustin Poirier is really good at it as well. And what it does, it builds that relationship and builds depth, which is what partner brands want to see. And having depth with your community rather than just focusing on width and the scope of your following, that's the difference between a couple of CBD partnerships, which you just post a couple times, and actually having like a long-term brand deal with a Gatorade or a Nike or a Puma or whoever. And that's what you really want. And not only that, it actually then, I think, drives traffic to his YouTube and where else he's telling stories, because he has a vlog series of after he got suspended, he had shoulder surgery, and he went to like this. So I think it was like Peru, and he had like stem cell surgery in both shoulders, and he was talking about the process of his recovery, him going hunting with his dad, which is like a completely different thing, but it just shows his interest, having Q&A sessions, and all of that he can then actually also clip up, and it makes easy content for his other socials as well. Bryce Mitchell's one who's really good at that recently. I absolutely love him. I think he's entertaining as anyone. He's like unique and genuine. So that's one part of it. The other thing that TJ was best at doing, I think, is when Conor, you remember on The Ultimate Fighter a few years back, and it was Conor and Uriah, and TJ came into the gym and Conor was going, "You're a snake in the grass." And what TJ did, he listened to the conversation of MMA fans. Everyone starts calling TJ the snake in the grass. And what he did, and especially Cody Garbrandt did as well, and he lent into it, and he before he did the Ultimate Fighter against Cody, he produced these T-shirts for his team, and it was like a snake, and it had TJ's head on it, and it had Cody Garbrandt, and it was like strangling Cody Garbrandt and his team in the middle. And so he listened to the conversations, and he just leans into it, and it builds the brand for him, because he can search out his audience and what they're saying and what they want, and then just give them what they want. Henry Cejudo did the exact same. Everyone goes, Cejudo's cringy as anyone. Okay, king of cringe, bend the knee. Henry's first girlfriend, that was funny. Even though I'm a TJ fan, it's like entertaining to me to see him do that. And it's just, the thing is, it really is that simple. It really is that simple as just leaving a comment or just starting your own little hashtag around your brand. And Dustin Poirier had "Stay Hydrated" the other day, and people were talking to him around that hashtag. It's literally that simple. It's literally that simple. Rather than, hey, here's me after training, because that doesn't have any value. It's just not really interesting to me and to most people. And you can see it. Like, if you go through these fighters' posts where they're posting a pic of them and their teammates after training versus them doing whatever or spending time with their family or doing something fun, the engagement and the attention on those posts is just so much greater as well. And again, like I say, that's what the partners want. That's what's going to build depth of your community, and that's what gives you leverage to actually negotiate better pay in your sport as well. So there's just so many benefits to doing it, and it is worth it. And that's what athletes more and more need to understand, is it's so simple but so valuable. And if you're an athlete who doesn't want to pay attention to social media because it's not really your thing, you are leaving more money on the table than you could possibly imagine. And they don't realize it. And it probably will change, because the athletes of the next 5-10 years are going to be people who grew up with social media in their teen years. So they're going to want to be on it. A lot of the guys now who are athletes didn't have it growing up, so they perhaps aren't that interested in it. So
true. I mean, I'm almost 37, and I didn't have social media until I was, I don't know, mid-20s, really. So I get that. Those are my types of people. We're at the end of our careers as athletes. I mean, I'm long gone, but the people that are my age are at the end of the careers. But even there's young guys. I just talked to a guy the other day who's like 30-ish, who's a probably soon to be UFC fighter, and he posts the stuff that we just talked about on his social media. There's really nothing to it. He's just like everyone else. And when you just post the typical fighter stuff, where it's like the practice and occasional look back at an old fight or whatever, you get the comments from your friends and your family, but you don't build a true audience. You don't get the people that are, your friends and family will support the stuff you do, obviously, but that's a small group, a small percentage. That's not going to help you build a business from it. So it's getting all those other people. And going back to brands, you mentioned like CBD and some different things. Brand wise, to me, you can't just show up and start talking about brands either. You have to build these pillars of content to start to be able to show that. So, all right, so if you're a fighter and you're CBD, you want to work with a CBD company, you have this CBD company that you already work with, well, take us through your practice, take us through your recovery, take us through all these different things. And then when you finally get to, hey, this is something I've been doing for a couple of months, or hey, I've been doing this for weeks and this has been helping me out a ton. Well, tell us why it helps you, what it's been helping out with. Like, I had this, hey, not only did it help my knee injury or whatever, and it's helping me get through more practice, but it's also helping me sleep better. Tell me like all of these things that's going to help me, who's maybe not a fighter. Why would I want to take it? Because there's reasons that I would take CBD that are different than the reasons that maybe an actual athlete would take the CBD. So take me through that. Tell me why, and don't just show up every couple of weeks with a product like, hey, buy this, support these people, use the code George for 25% off. Now tell me why I should, and be consistent with it, especially if you want to make money on it. Be consistent with it. Don't just throw it up and say, use this thing. Tell us why, tell us how it's benefited you, and tell us how it's going to benefit me.
Exactly. And I think a lot of athletes actually partner with brands that they don't really believe in. Like, to me, there's so many UFC fighters partnering with CBD companies, and to me, it just seems like it's just like rinse repeat. It's like a run-of-the-mill thing. Like, if you're a UFC fighter or MMA fighter, you have a CBD partner, you post their product a couple of times on your Instagram, and that's it. I want brands to actually align with athletes, brands to partner with athletes who their brands align together well, because for me that actually makes the partnership more genuine. So I don't care about hunting, but because Bryce Mitchell built like this hunting sort of imagery around his brand, and he obviously has his camo shorts now, which is an excellent move by Reebok, which is about time that he did that, even though they're not renewing their deal anymore. But there you go. He now has a partner. I can't remember the brand's name, but they make hunting apparel and hunting equipment. So you actually have brands that you believe in, and that it's going to build depth with your community again, and they are actually more likely to go out and buy the product or buy the service. And then that relationship between yourself and the partner brand is going to get better. And maybe you can, and it's in the long term as well, it's more than just getting payments. You can then get equity in that company after you retire, or get royalties off the products that they sell. So you actually have to think about what people want to associate with your brand, what personality you want to build around your brand. And that way you actually can build those meaningful partnerships, not just have those like run-of-the-mill CBD and supplementation that the fighter probably doesn't even use. They probably just get a package sent to them and just take a picture with it, and it's like, all right, that's it. Because that's not genuine.
And I think two things of that. One is we've talked about how little fighters make, and this is at the UFC level. People making $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 isn't a lot of money. But when you're talking in Cage Warriors or LFA, or I mean, those people could be making $1,500 or $1,000 or $2,000. So even less. So I understand where sometimes you want to take partnership. You want to take money because you need money. You got to eat. You got to pay light bills. You got to pay for your phone. You got bills. There's reasons to do that, I think, sometimes, but the more authentic you can be, the better. If you don't take the product, or if you don't use the product, if you get to a point where you can be a little more selective, if you don't use the product, you don't take the product, you don't believe in the product, you shouldn't do it ever. If you want to, and this is something, again, talking about old school managers and agents, this is how a lot of these people think. They get opportunities, they shoot them to their athlete, and they either say yes or no. That's usually how this goes. And I know I've talked to a lot of agencies in a lot of sports, and this is typically how it goes. But you're in a position now as an athlete where you can go, especially when you're at the UFC, you can go to a brand and say, here's this idea I have. I've been using your product. I've been using your soap for five months. I love your coffee. Let's do this. I have this idea. I want to do a wake up every morning and a motivational Monday. That's boring. But like a funny, I want to do a funny thing. I want to do it with your coffee because it's my wake up, blah, blah, blah thing. Or it's whatever idea you've got. Let's do a happy hour and it's a tequila brand. Let's partner with that place. It's creating authentic partnerships towards you and going out and be active with it. You can do that stuff. When you're in the UFC, you can do that stuff. Go out and actually we'll talk to brands and pitch ideas and concepts.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, again, it's just like that long-term game of if you actually go out and build these relationships with your fans and with your partners, it's building long-term brand over going for short-term sales and short-term payments that aren't really good in the long run, because especially if you sell like some bullshit product that no one really wants or doesn't work, or it's like overpriced or whatever, it's going to reflect badly on you, and people aren't going to trust you when you try and selling them something else in the future. And this is a problem, I think, with fighter agents or even football agents over here, is they say to their clients, I can help you market yourself. What they mean by that is they'll help you find partnership deals. And obviously, if you do a partnership deal with, say, you do a Puma and you're in a commercial with Puma, that is going to build your brand and it is going to have eyes on you and it is going to perhaps build new associations, but you actually have to build the brand to get that partnership in the first place. And this is what agents don't understand. Most agents or sports managers have backgrounds in either usually a former athlete of the sport, or they have like a legal background, so they understand the contracts and negotiations and all the red tape around it. They don't actually understand marketing. That's one. Maybe not in MMA, because I don't know many MMA managers. I know a number of agents within football, and that's definitely the case. They can't actually market their athletes, and ultimately it's in the interest of the agent to sign that partnership deal with the athlete, because they're going to take a commission. So it's kind of like a conflict of interest there as well. So this is why, as an athlete, you actually need to be educated about what your brand is and have an actual vision for your brand and what kind of partners you want to partner with. I know that's something that you go through day number one when you work with an athlete, is what do you want your brand to be? Who do you want to partner with? Mm-hmm. Because that's what's going to build a long-term sustainable brand for you, even when you retire. So that's the way to go, for sure.
Yeah. And I think you can, I don't care what your level is. I don't care if you've never had a pro fight, if you've had 2 amateur fights, but you want to be a professional fighter and you want to create opportunities, you can start doing that today. Start creating what you want your brand to be and start building towards that. It doesn't matter what your following looks like today. You want to build towards the following that you want in the future.
Correct. Absolutely correct. One more thing I want to talk about is the rise of audio marketing and how this is going to affect athletes. This is only something that really came into my head the other day, but as any marketer will say, it's about where the attention is, right? Whatever social network has all the attention is where you want to be. That's why no athletes are on MySpace. That's why athletes are on Instagram. That's why more athletes should be on TikTok, pretty much regardless of who you're trying to target. I think every athlete should be on TikTok, and I'll come on to that in a second. But what's soon going to happen, probably within 5-10 years, is smart speakers. And I had this idea that athletes really should look towards sonic branding, because when people are going to be using smart speakers to listen to your podcast or listen to the audio from your YouTube video or just do a Google search about you, they want to have to remember you by a sound. So it isn't just about your visual identity. And I think sonic branding is something that more athletes should move towards, especially those fighters who already have vlogs and are putting micro content on their Instagram or maybe on their TikTok or Twitter, because it's something that's been a concept in marketing for so long, but I think it's probably going to become more important. And I've had this theory for years, and it's kind of clicked with me now that it's going to be even more important because of the move to audio marketing. So I think every athlete should have like a sound or a phrase that people can associate with them. Because if you don't, people aren't going to know about you. Like, for me, people know about TJ Dillashaw, yes, because of where he is in the sport. But if I said snake in the grass, you know I'm talking about TJ Dillashaw. If I said, who the fuck is that guy? You know I'm talking about Conor McGregor, or even Jeremy Stevens for that man. What I'd do if I was Stipe Miocic is, from when he fought in Cleveland to beat Alistair Overeem, when he took the mic and he shouted OH, just sound like that. And on every Instagram post or every YouTube vlog that he does, is just have that clip like play at the start with his logo, or he's on Twitch now, like incorporate that sound. Like when you get a new follower on Twitch or a new subscriber on Twitch, like have that sound play in the background, because people are just going to build that association even more. And I think it's something that athletes need to do. It's going to cost them virtually nothing. It might not turn out to be very important. I could be wrong about this, but I think why not? All it's going to do is just build another layer to your brand. It's going to create another association in your audience's mind about who you are and what your brand stands for. And like, you know, if it's Stipe Miocic shouting OH, he stands for Cleveland. That's one of the big things that is most talked about by Stipe. So you need to actually like just keep reinforcing on every single avenue and every single opportunity, whether it's in a logo, on your website, whether you sell a service or whatever. And that's sorry, go on. Go ahead.
No, I thought you were still going. My bad. So I mean, I don't hate that idea. I don't hate it. I wouldn't say I know a whole lot about that concept, but I'll let you roll with that. But when it comes to Stipe, so the whole OHIO thing is the big Ohio State University is like a massive following. That's where it comes from. And anyone in Ohio, I'm from Ohio, which is the state that he's in. It's OHIO. Annoying as shit to me, who's not an Ohio State fan, but he 100% could be rolling with this OHIO thing, and he could be like OHIO MMA. It could be Ohio blah blah. He could be killing it with this stuff. Stipe, I wasn't a big fan of his last manager. I know he's got new management. Maybe he'll do some stuff here, but he could be killing it with that, and people love it. People love Stipe in Cleveland, and by the way, they didn't even really know about him until he won his title. People didn't know about Stipe. People didn't Miocic, how Miocic. How do you say this guy's name? People didn't even know his name. Steve. They didn't know how to say Stipe Miocic. And I'm from the area. I know that. And then he wins a world title. And now he's obviously has a big name. Maybe one of the best heavyweights of all time. And that's only in a couple years. But if he could do a better job with his marketing and branding and doing stuff like the OHIO, I'd love to see it. And he'd probably make a shit ton of money off it.
I agree, and it's part of that sound that it's just gonna help build that association. So that's what kind of leads me on quite nicely to onto TikTok. So new platform, relatively new platform, but the organic reach
Hmm.
is just so high on it. And initially,
Hmm.
it had this association of it being for like teenage girls or young girls, but the audience has just grown more and more diverse. And I think there is a place for absolutely any MMA athlete to be on there posting content.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I know that one of the fighters you work with is quite active on TikTok and has a lot of followers on there, which you'd expect for any athlete really to be on there
Hmm.
because the organic reach is so high to have a big following. But if I use, say, TJ Dillashaw as an example, a lot of the content he posts on his Instagram or on his Facebook is little clips from the course that he sells. It costs about $200, and it has videos of basic MMA tutorials, striking for MMA, wrestling for MMA, jiu-jitsu for MMA, recovery,
Hmm.
nutrition tips, supplementation tips, all for about $200. And you post like little clips of it, obviously just to kind of advertise it. For me, if he goes onto TikTok and he posts those little clips or makes like 1 minute tutorials or 30-second tutorials, then he can gain so much traction just off that. And it doesn't even have to be to build depth within the MMA community. Like there's predominantly still women on there. He could just do like jujitsu techniques from guard and rebrand it as self-defense for women and do like a self-defense for women series on it. And that's just going to get so much traction. And then he can go, hey, here, buy my course, which goes into even more depth about these kind of things. He could build a separate course just for that. The
Hmm.
opportunity is there and waiting for any MMA athlete to do that. I think there's going to be so much money in that, and the first athlete to do it is laughing. And not just for those tutorials. It could just be like a minute vlog saying, "Hey, I'm coming to training today. This is what I'm doing in training. I've got a fight in 2 weeks. This is the last hard sparring session. I'll let you know how it goes." And then post another post after saying, "Yeah, it was good work," and just like little things like that. Simple, but the organic reach is there. Everyone's attention is there. Just go for the attention and just post something that people are going to enjoy. That's on brand with what you want to communicate on your brand.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The organic growth is ridiculous. You mentioned the athlete Megan Anderson. When we were in for her last fight, we were in Virginia. This was February 29th of last year, of this year, geez, of this year. And she had, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 followers on TikTok. Now she's at 600,000 plus on TikTok. And she does a mix of fight stuff, dance stuff. She'll do the hot dance of the time. And she'll do some gaming, and sometimes she'll just talk. But it's all just personality stuff. Something she's doing a little different, something she's dancing. You've never seen her dance unless you tune in her TikTok. So it's now she's starting to build that. There's such an opportunity at TikTok. There's there's Snapchat, there's TikTok, there's YouTube. It's to me, it's find what your niche is, find where your audience might be, and then go there and give value, whatever that is, whatever value means to me. It might just be that you're funny. It might be that you can teach a self-defense type thing tutorial and then sell a course. It might just be that you're a really badass gamer or whatever your thing is. Find where you can go with that, create a market for it, and figure out a way to make money from it.
Exactly. And brands who don't want to use paid strategies, who are on limited budgets, especially in COVID times, they're going to want to market to athletes whose reach can be so vast that you can't get that organic reach on Instagram. So if Megan Anderson's on TikTok and she has more followers and she's getting more engagement on TikTok than she's Instagram, there's a new platform for them to market to. So just to put this into perspective, Manchester United, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're a football team over here, one of the biggest teams in the country.
Come on. I've heard of them. I don't
You heard of them?
follow them, but I've heard of them, of course. Yes.
They're no good anymore, thankfully.
Yeah.
Liverpool are the best team in the country. That's what everyone needs to realise. So
Okay.
they've been on TikTok for about 10 days. They have 400,000 followers off of about 33 posts. It's there. It's
Yeah.
absolutely there for the taking. Biggest opportunity in marketing now for an athlete to build their brand, especially if you want to be in the mainstream, because there's all kinds of people on there, many of whom don't know about MMA, and you can just rope them in, provide them some value, be funny, be interested in any way, and just from there they might go, "Oh, this is an MMA fighter," and I follow them because they're funny, And from there, they get into the sport and it just snowballs. And you have like a huge amount of attention there, bring them over to the sport, they become part of your community. And then when TikTok organic reach dies, go and do it in the same place and wherever and wherever and wherever. And that's just the game, because that's what we're going to build in the long term. So there you go. And that's the game kind of summed up of marketing, is just be where the attention is, show yourself, know what brand you want to communicate, be authentic, engage with the people who are on there. And that's the winning formula, really. Doesn't necessarily make you into the next Conor McGregor, but it'll get you as close as you possibly can. It's about maximizing that opportunity.
And that window, you only got a short window as an athlete. Maximize that in whatever way you can do that.
Exactly. And if you're an athlete with these amazing opportunities, like hardly anyone gets to be a professional athlete, everyone wants to know what it's like to be a professional athlete. Document it just for yourself, and then upload what you want onto social media, because you won't regret it. Every trend, or one of the biggest trends I think in sports marketing right now, is behind the scenes content. People eat up like it's nothing. Like,
love it.
I know. So Last Chance U on Netflix. Like, I don't really know that much about American football, but I watched it because it's interesting. Amazon Prime have the All or Nothing series, where they did like Dallas Cowboys and Arizona Cardinals. So they did some about Tottenham Hotspur, Manchester City. Netflix had one about Sunderland Football Club, Juventus, and they're all behind the scenes content. And I don't really care about any of those teams, but I watch it because it's behind the scenes of a football team. Or Embedded is like behind the scenes of a fight week. It could go more in depth. That's the one thing I would do, but it just goes behind the scenes and shows me what you usually wouldn't. And it's just what people want to see. And if you can do that as an athlete, especially when no one else is doing it, again, the eyeballs are there. It's easy to monetize. The brand deals are going to come from it. So just document and just show on your phone.
There's still. Yeah, when you talk about vlogs and stuff, there's still a very small percentage of athletes that do that. Very small compared to, who could be doing it and who could be growing and building businesses through YouTube. As simple as that. But very few people do it. I don't know if they don't know how to do it, or, if you got to cut and add a video, obviously there's a little bit either of learning or an investment, and that's probably part of it, but it's such a big opportunity.
Absolutely. I think that touches on everything I want to sort of touch on. We've been going for about just under an hour, so I think we'll wrap it up there. So what I'll do is I'll plug your socials. So for anyone watching, at Curran _media, if I'm correct.
At Pat_Curran media.
There you go. On Instagram, you can follow me on Twitter. Lots of great content, whether you're an athlete or just a marketer, posting content such as myself, even though I've only just started out. And at Curran Media Co on Instagram, I believe, as well.
Yep.
There you go. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll do this again, I'm sure. I'm happy to reciprocate on your podcast if you want me on there. And thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.